Good morning, all of you. I hope you had a nice weekend and also you have completed your notes. So, last class, I hope all of you have seen the video with different experiments, isn't it? We found out that air has weight, air needs some space to occupy. We studied so many things. So, today we are going to study about some more properties of matter because the chapter name itself is Properties of Matter. So, from the experiments you have studied, I would like you to fill this table which is given in your textbook. Now, as you know, you have studied that matter is anything that occupies space and has mass, isn't it? So, what about solids? You know that solids, they are having a definite shape, they have a definite volume, isn't it? So, we can say that solid is having mass, a definite weight, definite volume and a permanent shape. Fine, that's good. Now, what about liquids? As liquids, we have found out that they do not have a definite shape. They only take the shape of the container. But they have weight, isn't it? They have weight, but they do not have a definite shape. They always take the shape of the container. Okay, so here it is having a definite weight, it is having a definite volume, but it is not having a permanent shape. And what about these gases? Do gases have a definite shape? Do gases have a definite volume? Of course, it has weight because we studied in that experiment with the two balloons how the balloon which is having air or which contained air and the other balloon which did not have air, which lost the air, how was it hanging in the iron rod, isn't it? We studied that. We saw that experiment. So we can conclude that air as having weight, that is gas is having a definite mass, but no definite shape and no definite volume, isn't it? So here it is having a definite mass, but no definite volume and no definite shape. Okay. Now we are going to see how the particles are arranged in solids, liquids and gases. Okay. Into the arrangement of particles, we are going to see a simple experiment to show that there are tiny particles in matter. Okay. For that, I am taking a glass tumbler. And you can see it is having sugar particles. I am taking a spoonful of sugar inside the glass tumbler. Now, I am adding water to it. Okay, I am adding water to it. And I am going to stir it. See, still the sugar particles are there inside the glass, isn't it? Now, when I am continuously stirring it, okay, I know that, okay. So, by stirring continuously, I have been stirring continuously. And you can see there are no sugar particles inside it. It's completely dissolved, isn't it? Now, if you taste it, okay, if you taste this water, you can feel the taste of sugar everywhere. From wherever you take this, you can feel the taste of sugar. Why? Because sugar, which are the tiny particles, have completely dissolved inside this water, isn't it? So, there are tiny particles in this experiment. What can you infer? So, after every experiment, you have to come to a conclusion, isn't it? So, before coming to that conclusion, I will show you another experiment. But this is one which is quite different. That is because we are doing not with sugar, not with salt, but we are going to do this experiment using potassium permanganate. Now, you can see how potassium permanganate behaves when it is completely mixed in water and what happens. Okay, from after seeing that experiment, we can come to a conclusion. Okay,
I'm going to take a very small quantity of potassium permanganate crystals and we are going to dissolve it in 100 ml of water here. Can you see that deep purple color? Now if we can show that a very small quantity of potassium permanganate can also color a large volume of water. Then that means that these crystals must be containing millions and millions of particles that get spread on dissolving and color the water. So the particles of potassium permanganate must be very, very small. But the trick we are going to do is, rather than dissolve a small quantity of potassium permanganate in a large volume of water, we are going to make use of the purple water here. So we are going to take a small quantity of this purple water and dilute it with more water. And then again take a small quantity of that and further dilute it with more water. It's the same effect as adding a small quantity of this in a large volume of water. Let me show you how. First, I have taken 1/10 of this purple potassium permanganate solution in the small beaker here. So 1/10 of 100 ml is, as you can see, 10 ml. Now I am going to pour this solution into the empty glass here. And then we are going to dilute it with 90 ml of water so that the total solution becomes 100 ml. So can you see the light purple color now? Now let's take 1/10 of this new solution and again dilute it with water to make the total volume 100 ml. Again we have taken 10 ml of this light purple solution and we are going to dilute it with water again. So the total volume of the new solution is 100 ml. And can you see the pink color of the solution? And again we are going to repeat the dilution process with this new solution. So even in this last glass, can you see that light pink color is still visible here? So this process of taking a small part of the colored solution and repeatedly diluting it makes the color go from dark to light. With the help of this experiment, we've shown that if you take the same small quantity of potassium permanganate and put it in a large volume of water, you're going to end up with a light pink color like this last glass here. So what's our conclusion? These tiny crystals of potassium permanganate must be containing millions and millions of potassium permanganate particles, which on dissolving in water, they can spread through the large volume of water and give it a light pink color like this. So the particles of matter must be very, very small.
You have seen the experiment. So from these two experiments, there is one with sugar and the other with potassium permanganate, you came to a conclusion that each substance is made up of tiny particles. Each substance is made up of tiny particles which cannot be seen with our naked eye. So you saw that how that sugar, when dissolved in water, were you be able to see the sugar particle? But when you tasted that water, it is having that sugar taste. So from that experiment, we can understand that each substance is made up of very tiny particles which cannot be seen with our naked eye. And those particles will bear all the characteristics of the substance. These particles will bear all the characteristics of the substance. That is why when you mix sugar with water and when that sugar completely dissolved in water, you had that sugar taste. Isn't it? Because that sugar particle showed its characteristics. Okay, so that is the conclusion of that experiment. Now we are going to see how the particles are arranged in. So in this diagram, you can see how the particles are arranged in solids, liquids and gases. So first we can go to our solid. What you can see? The particles are very closely packed, isn't it? The particles are tightly packed, isn't it? There is no space in between these particles. Particles are very closely packed. There is no gap in between, isn't it? They are very closely and tightly packed. Now when you are coming to liquids, oh my God, just quite different from solids, right? Because the particles are loosely packed compared to solids. Liquids, it's completely loosely packed, isn't it? So that is why when you are adding some solids to the liquids, it is completely dissolving in it, isn't it? Now come to gases. Oh, very loosely packed, isn't it? The particles are very loosely packed in gaseous systems. Okay, so you can compare how the particles are arranged in solids, liquids and gases. In solids, the particles are very closely packed. Particles are very close to each other. Whereas in liquids, particles are loosely packed. And they are able to move also, isn't it? In solids, as the particles are very closely packed and no space in between them, the particles are not able to move. But in liquids, since the particles are loosely packed, they have the space to move. In gases, in gaseous molecule, in gaseous particles, when you are comparing to liquids, particles are more and more loosely packed and they have the gap to move, isn't it? So these are the way in which the particles are arranged. So in the next class, we will be going to see whether these particles, that is the solids, liquids and gases, they can be changed. Okay, they can be changed. They can be changed from one state to another, one form to another. That we will be discussing in the next class. So, in today's class, we studied about the properties of solids, liquids and gases, how the particles are representing the characteristics of that substance through two experiments, and how particles are arranged in solids, liquids and gases. So, this is all for this week's chemistry class. Thank you all of you.